So I am going to tell you three simple habits that you can start doing that's going to 10 times your social output, 10 times your social situations, 10 times your social life. You're going to be able to go into conversations, talk to anybody, whoever you want, no filter, without thinking whatsoever. Now, I feel like this is super important because here's a problem that I had, right, bro? One of the biggest problems in life was my social skills. Like, I remember I had no social skills whatsoever. I was known as that guy who was like the quiet, almost the guy who didn't even speak. I was known as that guy. People looked at me and they were like, "Oh yeah, this guy doesn't speak whatsoever." So talking to people was a huge problem. I remember, dude, I couldn't even say hi to people that I even knew in the hallway. You know when you're supposed to like go up to people and like say what's up to them in the hallways at school? I wouldn't do that. I would do this thing where like literally if I saw someone that was passing by me, right? I would look down at my phone, pretend I was texting someone. Or if I saw somebody that I knew, if I saw like someone I talked to for just a little bit, but didn't fully know, I would like look to the side, pretend like I'm reading something, and then people would be like, "Oh, bro, I saw you in the hallway," and I would be like, "Oh, I must not have seen you," when in reality I saw them, but my social skills were just so bad. I didn't want to. I just couldn't speak to people. And I remember this one time, bro, my senior year, right? This is when my social skills completely changed and when everything happened, right? This is one time my senior year where this guy I'm sitting with friends, acquaintances, people that I used to hang out with, right? And we were sitting in the lunch table. There's around six of us, and I remember senior year. You know, your senior year, nobody wants to make friends. Everybody's about to leave that place anyway. And I remember I'm sitting in this table in a lunch group around a group of friends, right? And this guy, this random new kid, comes up to us, and we all know who he's new because my high school wasn't big at all, right? And he was like, "Hey, what's up, guys? Like, I just moved here. Can I sit with you guys?" And the lunch table, right? And the people that I was with, I looked at all of them to see if they were gonna like let him in, right? And these guys were like, they kind of like gave the impression that like, not really, but we'll be nice. Let's give bro a chance, right? And so we let him sit. And let me tell you something. This guy, he sits down and he immediately starts talking to us like he had already known us for years. Like this guy, he's asking us questions. He's introducing himself. Then he starts making jokes. Then he starts making everybody laugh. And in the process of the whole thing, while he's sitting with us, he's literally saying what's up and dapping up with people that are passing by our table, saying hi to people that he already talked to today during his first day of school, senior year at this new school. And this guy, he was so funny and he was so charismatic, right? That like we literally started asking him and we were like, "Bro, sit with us next time, bro. You're so funny." He was one of those guys that was just super cool and just one of those guys where he can just talk to anybody. And in this moment, I realized this guy literally moved cities, went to a whole new school, went up, had the confidence to go up to a table of six people that he didn't know, asked to sit down, and won all of us with his charisma. While I'm here and I can't even say hi to the people in the hallways really quickly, the people that I know, I can't even say hi to people that I already know and have conversations with people in my own school. And this was the moment when I realized that, dude, social skills, I'm gonna need them. I'm gonna need them to make friends, get a job. Why should I continue to suck with this? Why not get really good at them, right? Why not just get super good to the point where I can just leverage them and have it not be a problem? So this was the point in my life, right? Where I started doing hours of research on how to improve my social skills, right? Like I started going all out on my social skills. I'm literally learning everything. I'm looking up YouTube videos. I'm asking friends who are super charismatic. I'm reading a bunch of books. And throughout all that research, it wasn't until I started doing these three simple habits that have improved my social life. I literally, bro, like now it's so easy to talk to people. Small talk is super easy. I've gotten cases of people even calling me extrovert, when in reality, I'm just a shy guy who just applied these three things and I had to learn everything on my own. So literally, these three things that I'm going to tell you are going to skyrocket and they're going to 10 times your social output. So the first tip I'm going to give you, probably the most important thing that has helped my social life, right, is speaking 10 to 15 minutes, at least 10 to 15 minutes out loud before school, work, or any social event. Here's why you want to do this, right? So, the reason why you want to do this is because I got this idea from a coach named Vin Jang. He's a public speaking coach, right? And he helps, thousands of professionals. He has like 1 million followers. He's pretty credible. And so basically, he gave me this tip, and he was just like, "This is what public speakers use whenever they're going into conferences or whenever they're going to give a huge presentation, right?" And the reason why it's doing this is because of so many things. So, the biggest tip that he gives is reading a book. Any book doesn't matter. Reading the words out loud for 10 to 15 minutes before any social event, because this is going to warm up your voice and it's going to allow you to just speak clearly. It's going to allow you to speak more naturally. Now you might be thinking right now, "Oh, but I don't like reading, I can't read, reading's boring." And I 100% agree. Bro, I would be the one who would like read two sentences, get bored, and then close the book. But you don't need to understand the book. Literally, like, I have a book right here, right? You could literally just read any book, doesn't matter. Just read the words. It doesn't matter if you understand or not. You can read two sentences, come back a minute, and then come back for another 5 minutes and read the words, right? But literally, the most important thing is speaking with your voice, right? Literally speaking out loud with your voice. And the book is the easiest way to do that because, you're actually like reading words, right? But if you do this 10 to 15 minutes, it's almost going to like warm up your voice, just like training, just like any other thing. And over time, if you do this literally every single day, you are literally training your mouth muscles and yourself pretty much to talk more. Because think about it like this: you're probably not talking to a lot of people, just like I did. You're probably not talking to lots of friends, and you're probably saying very little, and so your body's used to that. But imagine if you just start speaking more, speaking out loud more. So not only is that going to naturally like warm up your mouth muscles, not only is it going to warm up like your voice for the day, but over time you're training your body and your whole overall self to speak more. And I remember I literally started doing this, right? I did this before like a huge club event, and this was last year, so my social skills like weren't bad. My social skills have improved so much since then, right? But I remember doing this trick, and I was like, no way this works. So I literally read the same book 10, 15 minutes, then went to this group. And by the end of that meeting, I noticed it was like naturally able to speak. I noticed that I was talking with everybody. It was easier to speak. And by the end of that group, right? By the end of that school group, I had talked to and had good conversations with every single member of my group, of that club, right? So 10 to 15 minutes book reading out loud, okay? That's something that has changed my social life so much. The second thing is start thinking positive about people when you see them and not negatively. Now, I know that sounds super lame, right? To think, oh, it's a person, think positively. But think about this. Literally think about this. I'm going to tell you a story how this changed my life, right? So, in my neighborhood, right, there's this mailman. And, obviously, the mailman, he's walking in our neighborhood every single day. But when I was like really antisocial, right, I would try to avoid him. And I noticed that like every single time I had to go out the house, right, he would be out. He would be out delivering the mail. And this mailman, right, he was extremely social. So he was the type to like leave the mail in your mailbox and, say hi to you. He would wave to you. He'd be the type to, if you were sitting on your porch, he'd be like speaking to you. He was that social mailman. But because I was so socially awkward, I avoided him. I tried to avoid him as much as I can. If I saw him outside, I would stay and just wait for him to pass and then I would leave, right? But this started changing once I started thinking positively about people. And literally what you can do right now is whenever like you see people, right? Don't be like, oh, it's a person. Time to hide, try to avoid them. Don't do that whatsoever. What I want you to do instead is be like, kind of hype yourself up. Be like, oh, hey, it's another person. Like it's another brother, it's another sister. And literally, what this is going to do is it's going to train you to be less nervous. Because think about it like this: if you're saying something right and you're thinking nervous, you're negative about, you're going to try to avoid it. You're going to try to hide yourself. You're going to be more nervous. You're going to do everything that you can to try to avoid it. And if you actually run into these people, if you have to talk to them, your brain's just kind of like, oh no, like we thought negatively about this person, and now we actually have to face them. And you're gonna be 10 times more nervous now. But I remember I started thinking positive about people in general, and especially with this mailman, right? I'm just like, you know what? I'm not gonna see this as negative. I'm not gonna see him. I'm gonna get hyped up. I'm gonna be like, oh yay, it's the mailman, like that type of energy, right? And I remember like when I started thinking positively about the mailman, I started like avoiding him less, and like I actually like wanted to say hi to him. I'm just like, oh hey, what's up? And it's kind of crazy, you know. It's a simple trick, but start thinking positive about people. Hype yourself up, kind of like in a video game, right? You know, when you like play like Call of Duty or something, or about Xbox or PlayStation. Imagine like you're playing with a bunch of people in like a party. You know, it's super hype, right? Have that feeling because you're gonna start thinking more positive about the people, and you're gonna become less nervous because your body's like, oh, we're not trying to avoid them, we're not trying to become negative about them. So we kind of have to embrace it. It's another person. So that's the second tip you could start doing that's going to 10 times your output. And the last thing that I've learned in a book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving Enough, which is basically a book on how to stop caring, you know, how to not be so personally affected by things, right? And this third tip is changing your values. Now, I'm going to explain what this is because I know you're super confused. But basically, the author in the book says that things affect us negatively mostly because of our values. So he gives this example on how before this author, Mark Manson of the book, right? His relationship with his brother was something that absolutely killed him because him and his brother had always grown up close, right? But as they got into like their 30s, his brother kind of just like distanced himself from him. And so Mark Manson, the author, it kind of like bothered him. He was just like, oh, like brothers, we're supposed to be close. Brothers, you know, we're family, we're supposed to be close, but he doesn't talk to me. And this kind of hurt him. The author, like, he had a hole inside of him for a long time. But that all changed, and this stopped bothering him once Mark Manson changed his value. And basically, what this was is that Mark Manson, this idea that the brother not being close to him hurt him because Mark Manson's value was the idea that brothers should be close, family should be close, so therefore my brother should be close to me. But he's not, so that's hurting me. But this all changed when Mark Manson changed his value, which he changed his value to this. He changed his value to this. His idea and his value now on family and brother is this. It's like, you know what? Family and brothers, they might be family, they might be blood related, but not all families work together. Not all brothers are close. Some people get busy. So therefore, I should be more understanding on that. And once Mark Manson changed his value to this, the idea of that his brother wasn't close to him literally like stopped. It started hurting him. Now, you know, this sounds easier said than done, but the biggest value that the book says, right? So you can stop being so sensitive conversation, like be more social, right? Is to have the value that you just want to be a genuinely good and friendly person. Now I know that sounds super cringy, but let me tell you how this changed my life, right? So before, when I would go into social conversations, right, my value, right, was to be adored and get friends in the conversation. So my value was basically like trying to get out of the conversation. So with this value, I would go into conversations and I would always try to pull something out of it. And what that meant is that if conversations didn't go well, if no one wanted to be my friend, if nobody asked me to be friends with them, I would get upset about that. And the author says that values are so important. And this is what's going to hurt you because our values, right? If our value and our overall goal is what we value, right? If that doesn't happen, then everything else goes to waste. Everything, we're going to feel bad about it. So when people, you know, would ignore me, didn't want to be friends with me, my value was to get a friendship out of them. But since that didn't happen, everything else fell down. But since I changed my value to literally just becoming a good person, just being friendly and just being a good person, just being nice, right? My goal now is to just be like, okay, my only value and what I really care about is as long as I'm friendly and like connect with them, but also be a good person and listen, being nice, being polite to people. That's all that matters. This is my main value. And once I changed from the attention grabbing, trying to get something out of value to this, you know, as long as I'm genuine value, I noticed that If I had a bad conversation with someone, it didn't matter. You know why? Because as long as I was friendly, and as long as my goal and my value was to just be a nice person and kind and listen, that's all that mattered. I remember literally yesterday, I was going to a gas station, and in the USA, right, you can either pay at the pump or you can go to the window, right? So I went to the window to the cashier. I had to talk to the cashier to fill up my tank, right? And I remember I got there first, but there was a lady, right? There was a lady coming behind me, and with this new value, I was just like, I turned around. I was just like, "Oh, hi, ma'am. Come, go ahead, go ahead." And she looked at me, right? And she didn't smile. I smiled at her, by the way, and she didn't smile. She looked at me, and she just went ahead, kind of rolled her eyes. Now, if it was me back then, I would have taken that really personally. I would have been like, "Oh, what? Why did she do that?" But this didn't bother me so much because my value now, as long as I'm a good person, as long as I'm friendly, that's all that matters. So I just let it go, let her pay, went to the cashier, and it didn't bother me. So change your value in conversation. Don't expect something. Your value should not be getting a bunch of attention, getting friends. Your value should be improving your personality, being a genuine, friendly person and nice. And this is going to let off so much pressure when you go into social conversations. Like, subscribe, and see you in the next one. Peace.